Most serial killers in the world are men, but today's story is about a female serial killer. She's not just any woman. She's someone who tells the devil, "Come learn from me." She went from being an ordinary person to a criminal, diving into the world of armed robbery, then theft, and finally luring, killing, and robbing men. She killed 7 men in ways that will give you chills as soon as you hear them. I'm sure you'll find this story fascinating. So pay close attention to the details and stay with the video. Enjoy watching. Hi and welcome. On December 29, 1956, in Michigan, USA, Aileen Wuornos was born, one of the most brutal serial killers you might ever hear about. Let's take a look to understand how her personality was shaped. We have to look back at her childhood. Her mom was only 16 when she had her and wasn't able to take care of her. So, as usual in America, they sent her to live with her grandparents. But instead of raising her properly, they found all kinds of ways to torture her. Her grandpa even had a sauna at home, and if she did anything they didn't like, they'd lock her in the sauna room and crank up the heat, along with other forms of abuse. From a young age, she developed a deep hatred for men, and that bitterness grew over time. When she was about 14, she met some friends who led her down the wrong path and got her involved in some pretty shady stuff. And just a year after that, her grandfather kicked her out of the house, so she had to live in a forest near their home. She was just 15 years old, and life was really tough for her. She spent a whole year surviving in the woods. By the time she turned 16, things had gotten unbearable, so she pulled herself together and moved to Colorado. Now, pay close attention because the important stuff starts here. 2 years later, she got arrested for the first time. The charge was driving under the influence, and she was carrying a .22 caliber gun. During the arrest, she tried to shoot at a passerby. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison. At 20 years old, she decided to change her life and move to Florida. During that time, she met a guy named Lewis, and they fell in love even though he was 70 years old. He was a rich man, so I guess that explains why they loved each other. But the real problem in the story wasn't the age difference. It was that Aileen was really violent with her husband. People say she used to hit him with his walking cane, the one he used. Poor guy must have suffered a lot. After a few weeks of marriage, Aileen left him, and they both went their separate ways. Aileen had an older brother, just a year older than her, but they didn't get along at all. After the divorce, she got news that her brother had died, and she received $10,000. That money was more than enough for her to start her own business. The new thing, which was armed robbery, she bought a gun and picked a target for her first robbery. But it was a really dumb choice. She went to a small market and tried to steal 35 packs of cigarettes. The robbery was a total failure, and she got caught and was sentenced to a year in prison. One time, she saw a guy walking down the street, threatened him with her gun, and took $200 from him. She was ready to do anything to get money. After getting out of prison the second time, she met a girl at a pool hall named Tyria Moore, who became her best friend. They started working together doing small-time robberies and kept saving up money. But then, Aileen told Tyria, "Let's step up our game. We're tired of barely getting by with these lame robbery attempts." So, on November 30th, 1989, they decided to lure their first victim. The plan was to pull over on the side of a road and flag down a newer car with a male driver alone, then ask him for a ride to a certain place. After that, they'd leave a friend with him. On their very first try, they found the perfect victim. As soon as they saw 2 girls waving, the driver pulled over. The victim was Richard Mallory, 51 years old. Coincidentally, he had recently divorced his wife. When Aileen and Tyria got in with him, they brought along a gift. But just minutes later, things took a turn. Alan pulled out a gun and fired 4 shots at him, then took all the stuff and money he had. After that, he grabbed the body, dumped it in a remote area, and ran away. 2 weeks later, the body was found, mostly decomposed, but it was clear he had been robbed before the killing. However, the investigation was stopped due to lack of evidence. 6 months after Richard was killed, on May 19, 1990, they did the same thing as before. They stopped by the side of the road waiting for someone driving alone. They didn't have to wait long before they found the right person. David Spears, 43 years old. David stopped for them so they could check him out, and they started talking and getting to know each other. But then, How many minutes did it take until Ellen pulled out a gun, aimed it, and shot him 6 times? When David's family realized something was wrong, they immediately reported him missing to the police. Sure enough, the next day the police found his car parked by the side of the road. Ellen killed 2 more people the same way, Charles, who was 40, and Peter Smith, who was 65. These 2 cases were separate from each other. The same thing happened. She stopped them by the road, got out with them, killed them, and stole everything she could. After she was done with the body, she took Peter's car and went with her friend Tyria to a beach. At that time, Tyria was the one driving the car.at the time. The problem was that the car's tires were weak, so they got into an accident and the car flipped over by the side of the road. While this was happening, a guy was driving by next to them. When he got out to check the car, he noticed that 2 girls had gotten out and ran away from the scene. So he got suspicious and called the police, giving them the address. When the police arrived, there were no license plates on the car because they had been removed and thrown away somewhere near the accident. But when the police checked the car's identification number, they found out the owner was Peter Smith. After looking into it, they discovered he had been missing for a while. What the investigators didn't know was that Ellen was about to commit 3 murders while they were still working on the missing persons cases. On July 30th, 1990, the 5th victim, a man named Troy Bowles, was a factory owner traveling to another state. On the way, Ellen did her usual. She stopped him, got in his car, and then shot him dead. 5 days later, his body was found in a remote area and identified. The 6th victim was Charles Humphreys, 56 years old. It didn't take long for her to commit her 6th crime, just 1 month after the previous one. What really hit the investigators hard was that this man was a retired officer, and she had lured him in just like the others. The previous victims, then he killed him and stole everything he could. He even stole from the 7th and last victim. Turgino was a local leader in the county, and the same thing happened to him. Let's go back to the incident with Peter Smith's car. After the police investigated the witness who was at the scene, they described what Ellen and Tur looked like. So they sketched a picture based on the witness's description and shared it with the detectives. One of them actually recognized her and confirmed it was Ellen. After digging deeper, they found out that Ellen was always near the places where the victims disappeared. That's when the detectives finally woke up and realized that all these crimes were connected. There was one thing that became clear, but for now they had to find her. The investigators knew she always went to bars where people rode motorcycles. God bless you, they actually spread a lot of detectives across most of the suspicious bars. The surprise was that an officer named Mike found her in one of the bars. But as soon as she realized he was a cop, she tried to run away immediately. So he decided to watch her for 3 days. After that, he approached her, introduced himself, and tried to get close to her. They actually became friends. The police decided not to arrest her inside the bar to avoid putting anyone's life at risk. They agreed to wait for the right moment instead. The third one agreed with Officer Mike to go for a walk on the beach, and she was okay with it. The police plan was to arrest her as she left the bar. Mike wasn't really willing at first and was actually scared she might do to him what the previous victims did, making him the 8th victim. Sure enough, as soon as she left the bar, they arrested her and took her straight in for questioning. After that, they found her friend Tyria and arrested her too. They told her that if she helped by providing evidence to convict Aileen, they'd give her immunity from prosecution. She ended up betraying her friend and told them everything. But then, when they started questioning Aileen, she was very cooperative with them and told them right away, first, that she didn't want a lawyer, and second, that she killed all 7 missing people. The reason was that she was always drunk and not in control of herself. She advised them to execute her because if she got out of prison, she would go back and continue down the same path she was on. She was then sentenced to 6 death penalties, 1 for each victim. You might wonder why she was given only 6 death sentences if she killed 7 victims. The reason, my friend, is that Peter Smith's body was never found, and since they couldn't find the body, she wasn't tried for his murder despite her confession. After years in prison, in 2002, Ellen was executed with a deadly injection, and that's how the story ends. One of the worst serial killers in the world is the result of neglect and lack of care from her family. Kids grow up full of hatred towards people just to feel strong. Her mother abandoned her when she was little, and she suffered at the hands of her grandparents. I'm not defending this criminal at all, but if she had parents who raised her the right way, we probably wouldn't have heard her story in the first place. A movie was made about her life, but the film twisted a lot of the truth. And that's the end of our story. See you in the next video. Bye.